All righty. Well, welcome into the Late Night Gamecocks show. My name is Matt Anderson, and joining me, as always, is Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. Alex, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing good. It's feels weird to be in a bye week, not having to be at some football stuff like normal during the week, but it's also pretty nice. I'm looking forward to Saturday, not having to or being able to just sit in front of the TV all day and watch football all day.
Yeah, I'm starting to knock off my honey-do list stuff. I had some time this evening. I mowed the grass, got that done, so I don't have to do it this weekend. I'm gonna enjoy. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna watch all the college football. And right now, Gamecock fans are talking about the bye week blues because let's be honest, it sucks when your team doesn't play. It's not nearly as fun. You only get 12 of these Saturdays a year guaranteed, and Gamecocks only have 7 left, so maybe it's a blessing in disguise that there's a bye week this week for Gamecock fans so they can get their house ready for Halloween, whatever they're doing. But I think it's a great time for the Gamecocks to have a bye week, Alex, because they clearly need to get healthier and they clearly need to work on fundamentals. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. So tonight on the show, Alex and I are going to give our take on what the Gamecocks need to correct, what they need to continue to do well. And, we'll just see where the season goes the rest of the way. If you've been a longtime watcher or listener of this show, you know that I always like to look back to go forward. And this is the perfect time to look at the Gamecocks opponents, both who they played so far, where the quality wins are, and then also the losses and where the season's going. So we'll look back at the first 5 games, look ahead to the month of October. So the month of October, we have LSU on the road for the Gamecocks, and then the Gamecocks will host Oklahoma. Fair game. Just to let everybody know that's the fair game. So parking, get it sorted out now. And
mm-hmm.
then to close out the month of October, the Gamecocks will host Alabama at Williams-Brice Stadium. So we'll look at all that. Basketball is going to be here before you know it. So Alex and I will talk a little bit of basketball, talk about the roster, talk about the non-conference games, how the season could potentially be shapened. I don't think that's a word. Shaped by the non-conference slate. And we'll have Justin Lyles from sportscapvalue.com for our betting segment. And then he'll give you the games that he's looking forward to this Saturday, games he's tracking. He'll give his take on the Gamecocks versus Kentucky. He'll probably talk a little bit about Gamecocks going forward. Well, he's a basketball head too, so we'll talk basketball with him. And as always, he will evaluate Alex and my best bets. And spoiler alert, Alex is still crushing it, and I'm still bringing up the rear. We will do some updates now and at the end of the show. Just a reminder, no Rooster Rant on Sunday. There's no Gamecock game to rant about. So Alex and I are going to take the evening off, spend it with our families. But we will be back a week from tonight for the Late Night Gamecocks show on Wednesday prior to the LSU game. That's where we'll break down the LSU game. We'll see if we can get an LSU sports writer, beat reporter, someone like that on the show. And then look, this is kind of a wide open Wednesday on this network. So we look forward to your comments. We'll start it off really quick with a quick comment, then we'll hit our intro video, Alex. But D. Gainey said, what's your opinion of the disappearance of Mazeo Bennett this season? Alex, I'll start, and then I'll throw it over to you. My thoughts are the Gamecocks aren't throwing that much. I don't know what Alex might know his field participation, how many routes he's running, that kind of thing. But the Gamecocks just aren't throwing as much as they did even, last year, which is crazy to think. Lenore's averaged about 20 to 22 passes a game last year. Probably not close to that this year. I don't think there's anything wrong with Mazeo. I'll say that. I think that there's just a lot of competition in that wide receiver room, and it just depends on who's on the field. I've seen Mazeo open plenty this season. So, Alex, your thoughts on that before we hit the intro?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Then also, I think Brian Rowe, his kind of emergence is probably that a little bit too, just because they're kind of similar positions. And I think Brian Rowe is just like his athleticism is something that you really want to have on the field. So to kind of bounce off what you said, because I think you're right in what you said, I also add in the Brian Rowe factor in that. Like I think a little bit of his emergence and the way he's kind of come on here these first few games, I think that's been part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I mean, it's not a problem to have guys that are on the field producing, and Brian Rose certainly has done that. And we've seen Mazio doing it with his opportunities in the past years. But Alex, let's go ahead and hit that intro. When we come back, we're going to take a look back to look forward.
Gonna turn on the late night show, hear what's going down in Cooltown. I said I'm turning on late night show. Yeah, my Cox will let me down.
Well, welcome back to the Late Night Gamecocks show. I do want to give a shout out to Eddie Blackburn. Eddie is a part of Club Chief. Greetings from Conway. Glad I found y'all. Thanks for the content. Absolutely, Eddie. We love doing this. We love interacting with the folks who love the Gamecocks, because that's what these shows are about. And we strive to give the very best coverage on a video platform of any college athletics program in the country. So we appreciate that, Eddie. Moving ahead, Alex, it seems ludicrous to say this, and please don't throw Rotten Tomatoes at my face. I don't want those. But the Gamecocks are only a half game back in the SEC standings to make it to Atlanta. So, albeit the Gamecocks are 10th in the SEC standings so far, only a game and a half back of second place. And as we know, in this new 16-team conference, the top two teams and by tiebreakers, all that kind of stuff will come into play. But I say all that to say, let's just check in on the SEC standings for those of you who, watch the Gamecocks and pay attention towards the end of the year, see where they're going bowling, all that kind of stuff, where they are in the SEC. Ole Miss leads the SEC at 3-0 in conference. Then you have Missouri, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Alabama at 1-0. Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee are 1-1. South Carolina is 1-2. Texas is actually ranked 11th in the SEC because they have a record of 0-0. They have not played an SEC opponent yet, which is absolutely wild to me that the Gamecocks and Ole Miss have played 3 SEC games, and Texas still hasn't. So Texas really did get that favorable treatment, I feel like, all the way around when scheduling their games.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at Texas' schedule. Obviously, they had the Ohio State game first, and since then they've played San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. So they've kind of had 3 games to get themselves ready for SEC games, I guess.
Well, it's kind of crazy. And like I said, I do think the SEC is going to be a war this year. I don't think there's going to be any team that runs the table and finishes with a perfect record. It still feels pretty
wide open.
Yeah, it still feels wide open, and Gamecock fans can take solace in knowing that they just put a butt whooping on Kentucky. And say what you want about Kentucky. Yeah, the offensive line, the big blue wall is massive. Maybe they weren't best prepared to take on a Gamecock defensive line that's pretty quick and twitchy and powerful itself. And look, we all know the quarterback situation with Kentucky. If I'm Mark Stoops, I don't know if I start a redshirt freshman on the road for his first SEC start at a night game at Williams-Brice Stadium, because it really was blood in the water. But remember, that's what good teams do. When there's blood in the water, they capitalize on it. So, Alex, I'm just going to throw some stats at you real quick. Just a bunch of stats, right? And then I want to talk about them as we go. But on offense, I went and pulled the total yards the Gamecocks had on offense in every game versus what their opponent gives up on average. And then I did the same thing for how many yards the South Carolina defense gave up versus how much their opponent's offense usually gets on total yards a game. Does that make sense to you, Alex?
Yeah.
All right. So on offense, the Gamecocks are averaging slightly more total yards than their opponents give up on average. But when I say slightly, it is ever so slightly. The Gamecocks are averaging 1/3 of 1 yard more than their opponents give up on the season. So right about at that average, which I don't think anybody would be surprised by. The offense has looked anemic. The offense has looked plodding. The offense has looked slow. The offense has been predictable. I mean, any type of adjectives you want to throw at that all mean the same thing. The offense has clearly not performed the way that anybody thought they would through 5 games. Only averaging 24.6 points per game is the team. And we know how many punt returns and defensive touchdowns have been there for the Gamecocks. So no doubt they got to improve on that. Alex and I will talk about that in a little bit. But I don't think this defense is getting the credit it deserves, Alex. I've since been pretty steadfast in this since the Virginia Tech game that I thought the Gamecock defense was pretty good. Now, the tackling issues that came up against Vandy and Missouri, not good.
Yeah.
But overall.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of to your point, maybe the defense not getting enough credit. I think the Vandy game probably is what kind of sticks out, and it just feels like a game where a lot of things didn't go the defense's way, and you also have to give credit to Vanderbilt because we've talked about they have their identity and they execute at a very high level. But I think missed tackles were an issue in these back-to-back losses for South Carolina, but you saw that be corrected against Kentucky, and against 2 really good running backs who are kind of maybe not to Ahmad Hardy's level, but 2 good SEC backs that can break tackles. So you saw that be cleaned up. And then the good thing you saw for the defense in this game was when they had Kentucky and those obvious passing downs, and really not even in that as the game went on, kind of throughout the game, they got after the quarterback, and that's something they're going to have to do. And you saw Dylan Stewart kind of get back to being one of the top players in the country. You saw Brian Thomas Jr. do that. And we'll dive in more to some of the defensive stuff. But, I think you're right that they don't get enough credit for what they are because they made great adjustments in that Kentucky game. That they completely shut down the run game for the most part after that first quarter. And they were pretty, they had the missed tackles were really what killed them in that Missouri game because they were in position to make those plays. They just couldn't wrap up on some of those tackles. And that led to those explosive runs that kind of put it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, here's something I don't think you knew, Alex, because I didn't know it. I had an idea, but I didn't know. On average right now, the Gamecock defense is holding their opponents to, on average, 100 total yards less than they normally get. So that's a pretty staggering number. 100 yards is pretty daggum good. Now, look, some of this is going to flatten out when you start looking at especially in the SEC, your SEC opponents. I don't think there's going to be a lot of 600-yard games for the offense. You look at Vanderbilt and Missouri; they're both averaging close to 500 offensive total yards per game. So, I guess with what I'm saying with this, the Gamecock defense has 29 tackles for loss on the year for negative 132 yards, 14 sacks for negative 93 yards. 23 quarterback hurries, and 6 interceptions and 10 pass breakups. So those are pretty daggum good numbers, Alex.
And that's without your starting cornerback for most of that.
Yeah.
One of your starting cornerbacks for most of it.
Yeah, a guy that in the preseason was getting some first, second round buzz in NFL draft circles at that. So I do like this defense a lot. And look, South Carolina still held Missouri and Vanderbilt to less than their season averages. Now, I don't think that, Mizzou and Vandy are going to average 500 yards of total offense a game going forward, but I imagine that number would probably be close to 400, 425. And, Mizzou kind of had their way with the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks didn't get in their way at all with all the missed tackles, but Vanderbilt was held significantly less than their average yards. So there are some positives, I think. And then, Alex, looking at the rest of October, the bad news is all of these opponents are ranked inside the top 14 as things stand right now. But the good news is you have 2 of those 3 games at home. So, look, for me, I think Gamecock fans have to stop caring about the name on the jersey of the opponent and what their ranking is. They're just going to have to get used to it. They play in the SEC. In every single sport, every SEC game is likely to be against a top 25 opponent, likely a top 15 opponent, a top 10 opponent, especially baseball. And This is what it is. It's the conference you play in, and the coaches are paid a lot of money to succeed in this conference. And you start things off with a big opportunity because you can make the Vanderbilt and Missouri games feel like a distant memory with a 3-0 in October. 3-0 October. Is that unlikely? Based on what I've seen so far, yeah, it's unlikely. Is it impossible? I don't think so. Because let's just talk about LSU, Alex. Okay, everyone's talking about Garrett Nussmeier. Is he hurt? Does he have a sore abdominal muscle, or does he have a torn freaking oblique? Two different things. And when you're a quarterback and you have to get that torque on the ball, when you're moving your hips and rotating and stepping through passes, if you go back, and I think Hale McGranahan found something on Instagram where it showed last year versus this year, you can see he's just not throwing all the way through his motion right now. It's almost like that back leg doesn't or can't move forward. So this LSU game, I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I just gave all the South Carolina defensive stats. I'll do the same thing for LSU. LSU averages 364 offensive yards per game. That's nothing great. I mean, honestly, it's just not. But on defense, LSU only gives up 293 yards per game. They force 7 interceptions. They have 11 sacks for negative 65 yards, 26 tackles for loss for negative 95 yards. But the big number, Alex, I'm staring at, and it just stares me right in the face, is LSU defense is only giving up 12.2 points per game. Now, we know that Clemson isn't a top 5 team in the country, nowhere close. That offense that was supposed to be God's gift, and you had Cade Klubnik on Heisman ballots, number 1 overall pick potentially. I will say it's not a Carolina Clemson thing. I've just never been impressed with Cade. And Alex, I have the receipts and your text messages to back that up.
Yeah.
I mean, just real quick, when Alex was writing his article, the top quarterbacks ranking them on the schedule, I don't know, where did Cade finish? 2 or 3 for you?
He was, I think 2, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's no disrespect to Alex. I mean, everybody had him up there, but I told Alex, like, he very well could be 7, 8, 9 when this season's done. And I should have listened. And his stats aren't good. Yeah, you should have. But Alex, let's talk about LSU quickly. Then we'll move to Oklahoma and Alabama in quick order. If Garrett Nussmeier doesn't play, advantage Gamecocks or disadvantage?
If he doesn't play, I mean, advantage Gamecocks. Like Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, you saw it last year in the game. Like he, when he has time in the pocket, he's a really good quarterback. But too, obviously you mentioned the post that Hale had on the Big Spur. Like he's some of these throws downfield, he doesn't look himself, and maybe a bye week for them, something that's going to help him get to that point to where he's closer back to 100%. But the LSU offense right now, it hasn't gotten clicking really. Against teams that really have something. They've had a couple of games where they've played teams that they should put up some points against, and they have. But their running game really been getting going. And I think the biggest question for LSU, or one of the questions for their offense this season, was how are they going to place all that they lost up front on the offensive line to the NFL draft. I mean, they lost first-round tackles, the guys at top 10 picks, and they've had a lot, and it's been a little shaky, I think. And then that goes into a little bit with Nussmeier having a little bit of struggles too. Like, no doubt it's going to be very difficult for South Carolina to walk into Death Valley and try to escape with a win. But I'm interested as this week goes on to kind of keep getting into these matchups to see what it is. Like, I think the biggest matchup in this game, to kind of watch is going to be that LSU offense versus South Carolina's defense. And I mean, obviously South Carolina's got to get some things going offensively because LSU's defense is really, really good. I looked it up real quick while you were talking. Do you know what the early betting line is on this game?
I have no clue.
What would you guess it to be at right now?
If I had to guess it?
Yeah.
I'd say LSU minus 8.5.
So FanDuel and DraftKings right now have it 10.5.
Okay. I could see anywhere from 7.5 to 7.5. Over under 43?
Yeah, 43.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. This is going to be a low scoring game. So we'll talk plenty about LSU next week. But Oklahoma, it's the same thing. I think the first game that John Mateer is eligible to come back, or not eligible. It's not like the NFL where you have like IR and you have to miss 4 weeks. But the timeline for him to come back, I think the very first game is South Carolina. I've heard conflicting things on that. So how recovered is he? So the Gamecocks have 2 opportunities, and that's why I say don't look at the name on the front of the chest of that jersey, because if John Mateer is not playing, Oklahoma isn't the same Oklahoma team. They can't run everything they've been wanting to that they've been running with John Mateer.
So with Mateer out right now, it's going to be Michael Hawkins, who South Carolina faced last year in Oklahoma, and obviously, he had some struggles in that game, and I think he's still a pretty good quarterback. But interested to watch him how he takes over, just in case for that South Carolina matchup if Mateer is still out, if it is going to be Hawkins, and Oklahoma's going to have a pretty big test before South Carolina. They played the Red River rivalry the week before, so that Mateer injury and his timeline is going to be interesting to watch because with it being that that wrist kind of hand injury, that's something that's going to be interesting to watch just because that's something that's key for Mateer. Like it's something that's got to be you imagine pretty close to 100%.
Yeah, and then I think if you have 2 quarterbacks that are hurt, injured, whatever, not 100%, I think I can pretty much say that John Mateer or Garrett Nussmeier aren't going to be 100% against the Gamecocks. That's an opportunity. So that's where I'm getting at. If you can, and this Alabama game, how good is Georgia? I think they're pretty good. I've been really high on Alabama. I think Florida State just shell-shocked them in week 1. I don't think anybody in the world was expecting that outcome. I think Alabama was like a 15.5-point favorite, if not more, in that game. Ended up losing by that much. So, I don't know where Alabama is, but we'll find out. I think they're only going to get better as the year goes on. So if you can go 2-3 in that run there, a lot of ifs and buts, and we all know what they say about ifs and buts. But you go 2-3, you're probably setting yourself up for a pretty nice bowl game. After that, you have Ole Miss, you have Texas A&M, so it doesn't get easier. But this schedule was always a gauntlet. These Gamecocks have underachieved so far. And I do want to shout out really quick before we get to our next topic here. Bullish Rebel. I'm not 38, number one. So maybe I don't remember things. But I'm pretty good Gamecock historian. No doubt, the Missouri and the Kentucky games, the Missouri and the Vanderbilt games, you don't intend to lose. Nobody had those as losses going into the season. If anything, they were swing games. But I think most people expected South Carolina to beat Vanderbilt and not have their way with Missouri, but walk out of Columbia, Missouri with the win. So, Alex, if you just give me 3 quick things you want to see corrected, changed, continued the rest of the way, then I'll give my quick 3.
Yeah, I think the first obvious one is got to get something going with the run game, and I'm kind of tying that in with you want to see Lenore Sellers be who he was in that Kentucky game from a run game standpoint, because that looked pretty close to 2024 into the season Lenore's to where he was playing his best and really kind of that Virginia Tech game, and that's something that's going to kind of help continue to open up that run game. And if he can get back to doing what he's doing, because you saw in that Kentucky game, he can just single-handedly take over a game. Now I'm going to stick kind of with the run game. Like I want to see probably a little bit more of Matt Fuller get into the game. Like he's a guy I think we talked about on Rooster Rant Sunday. Like just seems like, and sometimes when there's not any room for him to run, he's going to find a way to get 2 or 3 yards, which when you have that on first down, that's something they got to get some more. They got to be better on first downs just because this is killing them later in drives. But I want to see a little bit more of Matt Fuller, I think, just because I think he's kind of flashed here early on. And, they really kind of fed him on that 9-minute drive to end the game. And then defensively, I think you just want to continue. I kind of took this question a little different route, but from a defensive tackle standpoint, I think those guys have been playing really well. Kind of maybe in a little, under the radar well. Like Gabriel Brown-Lodendi's a guy that I think he's just, whenever you see the stat sheet, he may not fill it up, but he's a guy that he's made an impact on the game just because of his effect in there and taking up double teams and stuff like that. So defensive tackles, I just keep playing the way you're going to be playing. Should be facing some teams that like to run it right at the defense. So defensive tackle, I think for those guys continue to play well.
Yeah, and Exo here says O-line still needs to get better. That's right where I'm going next, Exo. I don't have a lot of faith that the offensive line can get a lot better. Maybe they get more cohesive. Maybe the communication issues go away, and you start being able to pile up. If you could just get 3.5, 4 yards a carry, you're making an improvement. But
I'll ask you this real quick before you get into your 3. When you see LSU or South Carolina take on LSU on next Saturday night, who would be your starting 5 on the offensive line for that first series?
So are we assuming Kaysen's healthy?
Let's assume he's healthy.
All right. So at left tackle, well, the tackles, I think you got to let Josiah sit for a little bit. I really do. I don't know if it's an entire game. I don't know if it's a half. I mean, look, this is big boy football, and you have to produce. And that's the bottom line with Josiah. He hasn't this year. He wasn't amazing last year, but he was still a freshman All-American and showed a lot of promise. He's a former 5-star. Yeah. So I don't think something's right with him. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but he just seems a step slower to me than he did last year. And I don't think it's the added weight. I don't think it's that. But, yeah, I mean, at tackles, I'd probably go Tree and Kaysen. At guards, I'd go Trovon and probably Shed. And then at center, I don't even care. I don't know. Center's been so bad lately. I'd like to see Nolan Hay get healthy again.
I think Rodney Newsome had a pretty solid day overall. Like
I think Rodney Newsome did. I think he did. But I mean, I don't, for whatever reason, Boaz, and I was thinking about this today, Alex, everybody I talked to in the offseason of the offensive line positions that were set in stone, left tackle Josiah, right tackle was iffy with Big Tree and Kaysen. And then at guard, Trovon was going to be one of the guards, and then another guard was going to be Shed. We heard that towards the end. I think that's 100% true based on him starting 4 out of 5 games and only not starting the game he missed. And then at center, it was Boaz Stanley. I mean, there was no questions about it. You kind of expected a guy that started 3 years to come in and do a little bit better, but maybe it's scheme, maybe it's technique. I don't know. But so my key is I can't imagine the scenario at offensive line getting better. And I don't think Lenoris is ever just going to sit in the pocket and dissect a defense, especially not this year. So get Sellers outside the pocket. We all know he's best when he gets outside the pocket. And really, I think that a lot of quarterbacks that are dual threat now are better because they live outside the pocket in little league and high school and middle school. They live out there. So you got to get Sellers out there. The defense needs to get after the quarterback like they did against Kentucky. I understand they're not going to have that much success every single game, but they got to make life tough for the quarterback, make him make some decisions, put that ball in jeopardy for the DBs and the linebackers. And then my last thing is just clean up special teams. Special teams have largely been great this year. I can't think of that many complaints, but I can think of a lot of complaints against Kentucky. The Gamecock special teams need to tighten up, and with the offense not moving the way that they have been, or moving the way they have been all season, essentially not moving, you can't mess up special teams. If you see the opportunity to steal a first down, steal points, I think you got to take it, especially this year. So anyway, that's what Alex and I think. When we get back, we're going to have Justin pop in. We're going to break down this basketball team. Justin's a basketball head, like I talked about earlier. And then we'll get into Justin's segment and our best bets. So stick around. We got plenty to talk about. See you in a minute on the other side.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
JC Sherbert here. Had a brilliant idea that some good friends of mine in Florence have told me about. Next time you're having a wedding or an event or anytime you got to feed a bunch of people, talk to my friends over at Flavortown Eats and Events. That's right. It's a food truck / trailer. Prepares the food fresh on site right there for you. No hassle. It's absolutely delicious. They'll come out, turnkey solution to feed the masses at your event. Go to their website right now. flavortownflow.com. That's flavortownflow.com. They have all the contact information you need, and they are a proud sponsor of the Late Night Gamecock Show and the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
This is the Late Night Gamecock Show with the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones. And with the king of late night, Matt Anderson. Go Gamecocks!
Welcome back into the Late Night Gamecock Show. Let's go ahead and bring Justin in here, and we'll talk some hoops. We'll talk some football. Justin, how are we doing tonight?
Good. How are you boys doing?
Doing good. You got coming off a win, man. Can't hate that.
Man, it does feel good, no matter who you play, even if it is a weak Kentucky team, arguably the worst team in the SEC. But hey, we'll take it, right?
Golly, Coldwater Justin just coming in with the whole bucket. But
Yeah,
I agree. It's kind of tough to take a lot from that Kentucky game. Yeah. Well, Justin, as I teased here a little while ago, and longtime viewers, listeners know this, Justin and I used to play against each other in high school basketball for Hartsville and South Florence. So he knows a little bit about basketball, a little bit. But so what we're going to do real quick, Justin, is we're going to break down this basketball roster and then talk non-con, because basketball is going to be here before you know it. You're going to be submitting picks every day before you know it. So, looking at the starting lineup, we'll kind of start there. I do believe it's going to be Michi and Big Mike. I think that Big Mike's probably going to play predominantly point guard, with Michi, bringing the ball up some and playing off. And then I think you have a real battle between Kobe Knox and Eli Ellis as that third starter. If you go Eli, you're definitely giving up some height. If you go for Kobe, you're keeping defense in there. And then Alex, I want to get your opinion on this. Who do you think the starting big men will be?
Oh, yeah, that's the question. I mean, we're going to get into it with some of the guards play and the front court play. I think Elijah Strong's got a chance to be in there. I don't know. That was actually one of the questions I had marked down for you to ask you to see what you thought, because I think that's something that's kind of to be found out. Like, I think, like you mentioned, you still feel pretty decent about Michi Johnson and Sharab Johnson being in there. And I think there are some other guys like Miles Studi. I think you throw him in there, not and maybe at the front court, but he's another one to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, with Miles, I've always been a big believer that he's best off the bench.
Yeah.
I think that's just his role. Super sixth man, super seventh man. Remember, he's won SEC Sixth Man of the Year before at Vanderbilt, so he has experience coming off the bench. I think Jordan Butler is probably going to start at center. That's just my take on things. He's been in the program. He's a big body. Has he been as productive as Florida State and Gamecock fans wish he had been? No, but he has the ability to stretch the floor a little bit. He can knock down the three. I think he shot more threes than 2-pointers last year. You'll have to double check my stats. But I think it's going to be him, and I think it's going to be a battle between Elijah Strong and Norden Kapik. I think Kapik's probably best off the bench, so you want Elijah Strong, who's been a starter in the ACC, to come on strong there. But that starting lineup gives me a lot of feel. And Justin, I want to get your take on this. On 2 years ago, nobody on that roster, on that starting lineup, is going to wow you with just bucket getting. I mean, Michi can do it sometimes, but it's kind of the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Your take, Justin?
Yeah, I think Paris has done a good job of flipping the roster. I'm with you. I'm just looking at the roster here, just to my side, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot of promise in Eli Ellis, the top recruit, and then him flipping the roster, Michi coming back with a unorthodox situation going back to Ohio State, NIL, whatever you want to call it, family, what have you. But he's back. For Gamecock fans, I don't expect him to really give us what he gave us 2 years ago. I think he blew it out the water as far as his production, and was a big proponent, a big part of why we made the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. And then I think it's like you said, we were talking about earlier, with a lot of who's going to play in the post, a lot of forward positions that are really unknown. So I think Paris does a good job of our kids being physical and athletic, and we really need to take another step forward with a couple of guys. Like you mean, I'm with you on Jordan Butler. I think he showed some promise towards the end of the year. I think he could be a kind of diamond in the rough. And then we need Cam Scott to really take on his role as being a predominant athletic basketball player. I'd like to see a little more aggression out of him, handling the ball and kind of taking it to the basket. That's if he can get on the floor. So I think overall Paris should have these folks ready to roll come this year, and we've got to be better than last year. And it just seems like the basketball, you got 15 spots on the roster, so a little bit easier to flip. So we'll see what happens. Getting ready to tip off here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's
for those who don't, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you think about a potential starting five that we mentioned, it's got a chance to be a pretty tall lineup with him, especially with Straub Johns being the 6'9" guy. Kobe Knox being, looking up their heights right. Kobe Knox being a 6'5", 200 guy.
Yeah.
Michi Johnson 6'2". An increased Esadonko, who we haven't talked about a little bit. Like, I think he could be one that you see come on more as the season goes on. But a 7-footer, Jordan Butler, a 7-footer. So it kind of with what Lamont Paris likes to do defensively, that length I think is something that can stand out. And I think kind of early thoughts on this team is, I think shooting and the guards right now you feel pretty decent about. Like, I think they're going Lamont Paris likes to have pretty much everybody on the floor be shooters, and feels like this year you're going to have that a little bit more than they did last year. And from a guard play standpoint, we've seen what Michi Johnson can do. Like, he's a guy that can single-handedly take over a game. Like, they have a few more guys, it feels like, that can do that this year. Miles Studi, like, we've seen him when he's on and he's feeling it. Like, he can have a Virginia Tech game from 2 years ago where he were in the Spectrum Center where his 3-point shooting won that game, or things like that. So I think shooting is something that's going to be fun to watch. And then the guard play, I think you are starting to feel decent about, or pretty good about. I think it's just that front court everybody's kind of wants to see early on as the season gets rolling.
Yeah, and we'll see how things go. The Gamecocks have a non-conference schedule that's pretty friendly, to say the least. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the easiest schedules for a Power 5 college basketball team this upcoming season. But I think it's going to be a little bit of everything. I do think that this team is better top to bottom than it was last year. I think the SEC top to bottom isn't as good as it was last year. So you do have opportunities. I think that if you make the NCAA tournament this year, that's unexpected. But it was very unexpected 2 years ago as well. I remember digging into Talon Cooper and initially not loving Talon for that team. And then watching him in the Garnet and Black scrimmage, I was like, oh, wow, this guy's the guy that stirs the drink. And it worked out that way.
Right.
But South Carolina does open their season technically. NC State's an open scrimmage. You can buy tickets to that. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina. I don't know if it's going to be a 20-minute halves. A lot of times with these scrimmages, it's situational. And it's, play for 20 minutes. And then, the next 20 minutes, we're going to practice inbounds 5 times in a row for both teams. So it's much more like NFL training camp. But when you look at the should wins, Gamecocks should beat North Carolina A&T, Southern Miss, PC, Radford, Charleston Southern, Stetson, the Citadel of South Carolina State, and Albany. Those are games they definitely should win. The games that we'll see about are Butler, Northwestern, Virginia Tech, and Clemson. South Carolina should have a decent chance in all of those games. I don't think any of those teams totally outmatch the Gamecocks talent-wise. Clemson probably has a little bit more talent than South Carolina, but South Carolina has been playing Clemson pretty close here recently. That overtime win last year with a team that probably should not have beat Clemson. So, guys, I'm going to throw this to you. I say best case, 13-0 in the non-conference. Worst case, anything more than 4 losses. That'd be pretty terrible. You want to get through a 9-4 at minimum. If 9-4, you're not making the tournament. And then I think the most likely scenario is an 11-2 type non-conference. I think that they'll get one of the Butler Northwestern games, and then I think they'll beat Virginia Tech. I do think that there's some coaching turnover there. People are figuring that out. And then Clemson, it's at Clemson this year. It's one of those things where I don't understand. South Carolina can't seem to have any students at the game when it's South Carolina Clemson, and then Clemson manages to have almost every student on campus in the arena that game. So I think it will be a tough game. But let's start with you, Justin. Is that the non-conference schedule? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I mean, you got to get off to a better start than last year. Losing the first game kind of just killed the momentum from the start for the season. And it felt like the team was just kind of chasing its tail. Nobody knew their roles. So, really looking for this team to establish itself in the non-conference and really get those roles defined about who's leading the point guard position, who's going to be the shooting guard, and who's really going to establish a presence down low. And then a key thing is really making sure that, you've established those 8 to 9, maybe 10 guys. Really these really good teams are playing almost 10 guys a game. So if we can find those players, those role players, and really have a lot of momentum and avoid injuries too, being key as you head into conference play come first of the year.
Yeah, Alex. For those of you who don't know, Alex's favorite sport is basketball. He loves basketball. I get more basketball texts from Alex than all of my friends combined in the off season. But so Alex, let's talk about this non-conference schedule, expectations, that type of thing.
Yeah, when you look at the schedule, the non-conference schedule from top to bottom, it feels like it sets up pretty well for South Carolina. It kind of feels like it sets up the same way the schedule did 2 years ago when you look at it. When you look back to 2 years ago, South Carolina had that tournament out in Arizona where they played, Grand Canyon and DePaul, who was a bad team. But, you're able to kind of get those named teams and able to, Grand Canyon ended up being a win that was kind of the quad 1, quad 2 win back and forth throughout the year. It feels like you may have some opportunities. We'll kind of see on Northwestern and Butler, what they kind of look like. I know they've been kind of down a little bit, but Northwestern's a team that has had some success, and Butler's obviously had kind of a named team in college basketball. So it feels like there is some opportunity for South Carolina to kind of get some things going. As Justin was kind of talking about, figure out some rotation things, who can you rely on going into SEC play. Once you have that Virginia Tech game, or after that Clemson game, you got SC State and Albany to kind of wrap up that December slate before you get into really, not the SEC is not going to be easy at all, and we'll get into the SEC slate later down the road. But you get a little bit of an easier start. I don't want to say easier, a little bit of a better start for South Carolina.
Oh, it's definitely easier. It's definitely easy.
Because last year when you had Alabama and Auburn, and I can't remember who else it was to start that SEC slate. This year you get Vanderbilt, LSU, and Georgia. So no game's going to be easy in the SEC, and we'll get into that later. But again, to my point overall, it does feel like the schedule it's kind of exactly what this team is going to need to kind of get some things going and meshing and get into Lamont Paris' system.
Yeah, I'll leave y'all with this. I think, Justin, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about roles being established. Who's the point guard? Who's the shooting guard? That's really important. The best teams I've ever been on, my coach has pulled all of us into his office and said, this is what I need from you this year. That can be practice player. That can be, for me, when I was younger, it was spot up shooter. Get in the game, hit some threes, get out. Justin was probably a starter as an 8th grader. But but no, that is really important, because in college basketball, you don't have to have the best post play, but you have to have guard play. And one thing that I know is this team is not going to shoot as poorly as it did last year, and it's not going to have as many turnovers as it did last year. And when you look at many of those games last year were blowouts, but a lot of them were 1, 2, 3, 4 possession games. So when I say 4 possessions, I'm talking about inside 12 points. Justin, you play basketball. I don't think people realize the difference in 4 possessions. 4 possessions is good enough to win the game. You just mentally effed up a couple times and it cost you.
Right. Yeah. And it's like Cole, my coaches used to say back in the day, playing is basketball is a game of runs. So teams are going to go on runs. They're going to go on those 5, 10, 15-point runs. Can you, go against that and respond, with your own, a run of your own? And then can you make your free throws? Can you shoot 3-pointers well? And I think for South Carolina, just going back to last year, that you're talking about the conference schedule with those first couple of games, we were in those games from the Auburn one slipped out of our hands, and you got to win those close games when it comes down to it. You've got to you got to get that bucket when you got that timely possession towards the end of the game. Those first couple of minutes, starting the second half are key. Ending the half is key. All the above, and I will also add that when Colonial Life is rocking, it's a tough place to play, and there's a wonderful environment to be a part of as a fan, and I hope we can get back to that this year.
Yeah,
well, that NCAA tournament team 2 years ago, to your point, that was what they were so good at, was closing out those games in late game situations. And last year they weren't all that great at that. I mean, you mentioned the Auburn game, Florida. South Carolina should have won that Florida game. They should have beat the eventual national champions in that game. That's something that's key, especially kind of in this system where they can get into these low scoring kind of battle it out games. They got to be able to do that. And that team 2 years ago, that's what kind of drove them to the tournament.
Yeah, and Justin hit the nail on the head too. I always say, basketball is a game of runs. You want the best run in the game, and you want the last run in the game.
That's right.
And you just hold serve and hold water. You might go on a 12-2 run, and then they go on a 6-0 run. Guess what? You're still winning. So, Justin, we're gonna move on to the betting segment of sorry, y'all. Alex just messaged us. He's dog sitting right now, and he's got to deal with the dog. So, Justin, you and I will carry it here for a minute.
Let's do it.
But yeah, looking at it, I mean, we kind of got your takes initially on the Kentucky game. Obviously we all know Kentucky's not the best team, but
right.
What were the bright spots? What were the things that you liked that you saw? Things you didn't like?
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I think it was a good bounce back from Missouri. I thought, Lenoris, playing 2 games in post concussion, looked like himself for most of the game, if not all of the game. He made some spectacular plays, kind of getting out of some stuff in the first half, staying on his feet. I thought that was key. The offensive line, still no improvement. I mean, we're going to put a blanket down on the field for Josiah Thompson if he keeps falling on his butt. I mean, that's ridiculous. We got to see improvement there. We still have only scored no more than 21 points in a game. So you can't rely on special teams and defense to score for you. I mean, hopefully you want to contain the other offense and force them to punt or allow them just to kick field goals. But Kentucky is, it's one of those teams that are probably in a transition period. It's going to be one of them years for them where they may play some close games and they may surprise some folks. Not necessarily beat them, but be there come late in the fourth quarter. But overall, we're getting ready to head into the gauntlet, boys. I mean, these next 5 games are just I was looking at that earlier today as I was kind of prepping to come on the show, and it's probably the toughest in the country.
Yeah, I think it is. And, it's funny, moving on to the betting part of the show, Justin, I mean, for years, it's been take the Iowa under. We don't even care. Just take the under. And it was because Iowa's defense is so good. Now it's almost take the Gamecocks under because the offense is so bad.
Right. I think the defense is coming along. I thought they showed pretty good signs. And it seems like with us is like we looked really good on defense last week. We had the lead, we were able to force pressure. But it seems like when we start trailing and we lose these games in the last year or so is we're not able to stop the run and get off the field. We're not able to apply that pressure that we did Saturday night. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what, or a discipline thing or a lack of effort, but some of those guys just seem to have a full motor last Saturday night. And we'll see if that continues as we make our way through this gauntlet, because there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah, and, looking back at some of these games, I thought when South Carolina played Virginia Tech and South Carolina State, they played down to their competition. And you see that in teams that play up and down to their competition, and it has to frustrate the heck out of coaches and definitely frustrates the heck out of fans. And I think that what happened was that Vanderbilt game, they weren't ready. They were not ready for what Vanderbilt was going to bring. And then they went to Missouri. Maybe they got a little bit of a gut check after Vanderbilt. They performed better. But in that game, the defense couldn't make a tackle. And then maybe you're seeing signs of beating a bad team the way you should beat a bad team. When you quadruple the spread, I don't care who you are, that there's nothing to to turn your nose up at that. You quadrupled the spread.
That's right.
So
it just seems that, and there's, the play calling seemed to be a little bit better. I'd like to see a little more play action still, little more trickeration as far as faking stuff, faking tosses, running guys in the opposite direction, a little bit of motion. And don't seem to that's not a Shula thing, or he hasn't really done that much. He's just still a lot of running on first down, which is a little concerning, but we'll see how it progresses.
Yeah, I think so too. And one of my keys to the rest of the season, the key to the game against Kentucky, I should say, was doing more pre-snap motion. Because when Lenoris is telling you that, I think they're in zone, it's hard to tell, and then they seem to know what the play is. You got to put a guy in motion to see if a guy moves on the defense. You just got to see if they're in man, if they're in some combo. You got to give Lenoris a little bit of signal to what the defense is in. But I do want to transition now, Justin. Let's hear about last week. How'd you do with your picks on Saturday? And just run through them and the ones you're proud of.
Okay. Let's see. Let me pull them up real quick. We went 6-5 as record wise. Would have been a really, really good weekend if Penn State could come out on top and cover there. So I think I mentioned this in the last show. Penn State might be on my ban list going forward. And then here's a trivia question for you. If I'd have told you you can't score any points in the second half against Georgia and still win the game, would you believe it? Could it happen? That's what happened with Alabama. So the over did not cash. They won the game. I was on Alabama, but the over did not cash as there was only 7 points scored in the second half of that game. Alabama coming out on top, 24-21. Looking back, I was right on Mississippi State. Had them at plus 7.5. NC State losing Virginia Tech. A little surprising. I was on NC State there. I was on South Carolina. I had them at -6 for 2 units. And then I lost to LSU. I was kind of initially on Ole Miss. I can't remember if I mentioned that last week, but then I did mention Utah State covering barely against Vandy, and then Illinois winning outright against Southern Cal. So, and then Cincinnati plus 4.5 winning outright. So pretty good overall. I'll take it as in the plus. Not a whole lot of units wise, but just right at 1 unit going 6-5 record wise. So I'll take it.
I'd take a 1 game over 500 record last week. I didn't hit that, but that's why we trust Justin. Well, Justin, what games do you have your eye on so far for Saturday, or if you have any Thursday, Friday plays, lay them on us too.
Yeah, I don't have anything Thursday or Friday. What I'm looking at again is I'm gonna run it back with Cincinnati. They're hosting Iowa State, who's undefeated, and then I've got Louisville laying the points against Virginia, and then I've got Bama. I think look at Bama. Vanderbilt's coming into Bama. This could be a kind of let's return the favor. What happened last year? Then I look for Syracuse to kind of respond. As you can see, here's my son making an appearance right here.
I love it.
Yeah,
family-friendly show.
Yeah. Syracuse to bounce back. 17.5. They kind of got beat down to Duke, and then a little surprising line that I like here is Florida getting 6.5 at home against Texas. And then I look for Florida State getting points at home against Miami, coming off a devastating loss to Virginia. And then UCF at home getting points against Kansas. Those are the kind of the initial looks at what I'm kind of eyeing this coming weekend.
Yeah, and remember, y'all, to get his official picks, you need to go to sportscatvalue.com, become a member. It's very, very affordable. And, he's making money right now. So if you had been betting with him for 2 weeks, that monthly subscription would be paid for most likely by now.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, some of the games that you mentioned, I'm really excited to watch, actually. It seems like it's going to be a fun weekend, a fun Saturday on the couch. But remember, none of those picks are official yet. You have to wait till Saturday to make sure. But at least he's giving you his thoughts and what he's feeling right now. And he's given his reasons in the past for why he releases games on Saturday. You want all the information. And so I trust Justin's algorithm. I should probably be following him every single game. But yeah, so that's fun. And that's sportscatvalue.com. That's where you can find him. We'll give that out at least one more time before the end of the show. But now it's time to move into the best bet segment. Look, we love your comments in the chat box. If you have any picks that you want to share with us, make sure you share them. I need all the help I can get. I'm a little excited by some of the things that Justin said, though. But let's recap last week. Going into last week, Alex was 12 wins versus 8 losses. And I believe that I was, where was I? I was 9-11. So Alex had me by a couple games. Last week was great for Alex, as I kind of mentioned at the top, and not great for me. Alex went 4-1 again. I went 2-3. So if you had followed Alex and Justin the past 2 weeks, Alex on here and Justin on his site, you probably could have paid your mortgage off by now. But just kidding. Remember, bet in small amounts that you're comfortable losing. Yeah, gamble responsibly. It should be fun. But so Alex is now up 7 games on me. Alex has a 16-9 record, and I have an 11-14 record, which I promise you, it's been worse than 11-14 in past years. So I'm kind of proud of this. But this is the fun part of the show because Alex and I will give our best bets, and then Justin, if it's a game that he didn't talk about earlier, he's probably gonna have some thoughts. So, Alex, I did mine on the fly during the commercial break. What is? Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go. I can go first.
Right.
First game I have, and Justin mentioned it, is Texas being 6.5 point favorite right now to Florida over Florida. I got Texas covering that one.
Okay, so we are opposite, Alex.
Oh,
I actually have Florida plus 6.5, and let me tell you my logic for it. Last week I got crushed on games that seemed certain in my mind, and when I looked over spreads, I looked at them earlier this week. I just finalized my picks just now, but that line is just fishy. The game is in Gainesville. The Florida defense has been largely okay this year, and Texas against Ohio State, really the only team they play with the pulse, struggled to score. It's a road game. It's going to be Arch Manning's first SEC road start. The Gators are hungry. They have to find a win. Billy Napier has to find a win. And I don't know. For some reason, I see this being a field goal game either way. And either way in that situation, I'm winning.
Thank you for making me feel good about my pick.
I'm with you, Matt. Let's sprinkle a little money line on Florida. I like
that.
it.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
That over-under is 41.5. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, 41.5 on the under there. It's almost embarrassing for 2 college blue bloods, I'll be honest. This isn't LSU and Bama back in the day.
Yeah, it's getting all the money right now, too, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, well, Alex, do you want me to do my next pick, or do you want to do it?
I'll go ahead and go with my next one. I'm going to Air Force versus Navy in this one. Okay. Over under is 51.5. I'm going under on that. Don't feel like BSU can get to 51.5.
All right. I don't have any feel for that game at all, so I'm gonna have to flip that over to Justin.
Yeah, I don't have a take on that one. If anything, I kind of like Navy on the spread, but as far as an over under, I didn't see anything of value when I was going through it earlier.
Yeah, by the way, spoiler alert, I've decided not to do any over-unders this week. I'm just going to stick with straight against the spread. And speaking of straight against the spread. Yeah. Speaking of straight against the spread, you have Wisconsin and Michigan this weekend. Wisconsin is a 17.5 point underdog. And I know Wisconsin didn't perform well against Alabama. Alex, that was a game you were on top of. You took Bama to cover that, and it was a big number. Until I see Michigan prove it to me that they can really beat up a less quality opponent, to give me the underdog here. Give me Wisconsin plus 17.5. Okay, Justin, make me feel better.
I don't know that I like the hook there. Yes, for sure. Wisconsin is a program going in the wrong direction right now. So on the road against Michigan, we'll see what happens. But hey, we're getting into the heart of the football season where those underdogs come to play. So I'm riding with you.
Let's go. All right, Alex Jones, your next pick.
I'm going to Kentucky, Georgia. 20.5 is what Georgia's favorite. I'm giving them covered. I'm going to I think they cover that one.
Just feel like minus 20.5. Hey, man, don't let recency bias get in your way.
I know, but
Carolina just whooped them.
Kentucky's going to want to run the ball. They, Cutter Boley. I don't know if they want to try to get him. Kind of probably do the same thing they did with South Carolina. And I don't think Georgia's going to let them run the ball. Then I think they just kind of get after Cutter Boley, and then I think Georgia's offense does enough to cover that.
I like it. I'm with you on this one for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a game that Kirby is going to make a statement, and it's not going to look good on Georgia if South Carolina beat Kentucky by 23 or 25, whatever it ended up being, and Georgia not smacking them. So I think this is going to be a bloodbath. I would probably lay those points with you there, Alex. Oh, my gosh. So I'll go ahead and give my next one, Alex, and it's one that Justin kind of keyed in on earlier. The Alabama-Vanderbilt game. Bama's hosting Vandy. Alabama's a 10.5-point favorite. I've liked Alabama this entire season. I still think they can win the national title. I like Julian Sayin. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, especially to be as young as he is. So I'm taking Alabama minus 10.5 in a Kalen DeBoer is embarrassed, and Kalen DeBoer knows that he will get fired most likely if he does not beat Vanderbilt this year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Vanderbilt's played anybody, to be honest with you, outside. I mean, South Carolina was the best opponent they've played to this date, and they didn't get the best version of South Carolina. I think you're getting a way better version of Alabama than you did last year. You're on the road in a tough, hostile environment. The question is, will the line change at all come Saturday? So if it stays around that 10.5, I would buy the hook just to be safe. I'm not a big proponent of doing that, but in this instance, I would feel a lot more comfortable paying a little bit extra juice just so I can get that nice number at minus 10.
Yeah, and so what does that tell you, though, if all of a sudden the line goes down to 10 or 9.5? I mean, that just seems like that would seem like smart money coming in on Vandy to me, because I think the public's going to bet Alabama. I don't think the public is going to trust Vanderbilt. So if this line goes down, that kind of scares me a little bit, Justin.
Yeah, it could be. And then sometimes you have to look out for reverse line movement, which would be money coming in on Bama and it go the opposite way, or on Vandy and vice versa. So there's a lot of details you have to pay attention to when it's not necessarily one way or the other, but when money is involved with it. So keep an eye out for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I have heard of that. I have heard of, big bets coming in, let's just say crazy number, 100,000 on Vanderbilt, and 10 guys do it to move the line, and they put $2.5 million or something like that on Alabama. So that'll be interesting. But I think that you like the line. I think that you think 10's a good number. 10's a minimum of a push. Anything under 10, you probably still like Bama. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I do for sure. I was looking at the game time. It's a 3:30 game. So yeah, I like it for sure.
All right. Well, Alex, what do you got next?
So you took the point spread in that one, right?
Yeah, I took Bama minus 10.5.
Okay, well I'll go. This 55.5 is the total on that one. I think it's going to be under. I don't see them getting to 55.5. Both teams. Like I think, Vanderbilt's been putting up points, so I'll give them that. But I'm interested to watch Alabama's defense going up against that, and then on kind of the flip side of that matchup as well. Like I'm a little lenient or hesitant to say they're going to get to 55.5 here.
I'm with you. I like the under here. I could see like a blowout, but it's like Vandy may not score, or they score like 14 points.
Yeah, like 31-14 is the way I was thinking about it in my head.
Right. I'm with you on that.
Okay. So we got that. And then I got 2 picks left. Look, I swear I had this written down before Justin said it, but Florida State plus 4.5. That's another one where I think Miami's played really well. They've probably been one of the more impressive teams I've seen so far this season. But when I go back and look at their wins, I can't sit here and say that Notre Dame's a great win at this point in the season. We know what Notre Dame's defense is now. And I've seen Carson Beck literally poop down his pants in big moments before. And I just think this game's at Florida State. Florida State has been waiting for a game like this. They are really angry right now. So give me Florida State plus 4.5.
Yes. Like I said earlier, I like this. I think it's a good bounce back spot / good opportunity for Florida State. Miami coming in a different kind of role that they're in. They're ranked number 3 in the country this week. So this will be their biggest test to this point. And kind of side note, have y'all seen, has there ever been a faster field storming than Virginia did in overtime last Friday night?
They were right there on the field.
Well, Alex, what's your last pick of the week?
I'm currently deciding between two I had.
Well, you want me to go first while you think about it?
Yeah, go ahead, do that. Yeah.
All right. I'm taking Texas Tech minus 10.5 versus Houston this week. This Texas Tech offense just seems to be operating on a different level. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think I saw the over-under was a pretty high number in this game as well. I can't remember. But give me Texas Tech minus 10.5. I'm just going to roll with this train until it bites me, and it might be this week. But I see a 14-plus point win for the Texas Tech Red Raiders this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think Texas Tech has done a good job of revamping their program with the NIL. That's one of the biggest, I won't say surprises, but one of the biggest turnovers we've seen. Like you said, this line's at 10 or 11. I look for this line to go up as we get head into Saturday. And I would not be shocked if this line finishes at 12.5, 13 come kickoff.
Wow. So if you like the Red Raiders like I do, take the value now for sure. Alex, your last pick.
All right, so I've decided I'm going to go into this Virginia and Louisville game. Louisville is 6.5-point favorite. Virginia's coming off a big win. This game's at Louisville. Louisville's going to cover 6.5.
I looked at that game.
Yes, I'm with you. That's one. Go ahead.
I also thought the other one I was going with was the Clemson North Carolina spread. Clemson's 14-point favorite in this game. I came close to saying they're going to cover in this one just because I can't get that first game for North Carolina out of my mind with what TCU did in Chapel Hill. But I'm not there with Clemson's offense, obviously, so I went with the other way.
Clemson's got to play a good game at some point this year, right?
That's part of what I was thinking too, yeah.
It'll be against Bill Belichick, so all the Clemson faithful can say Dabo better than Bill Belichick. We saw it this year. Clemson, this is the worst Clemson team in a decade, and Dabo still trounced Bill Belichick. It was all Tom Brady. I can hear it. I hate it.
Yeah, that number's. I just don't. I mean, nothing would surprise me. I would not be surprised if they lost. I would not be surprised if they beat North Carolina by 50. You just don't know. That's kind of how we talk about the Gamecock. At least I do. You just never know what Gamecock team you're going to get, week in and week out. And this year is kind of similar with Clemson. You just don't know who you're going to get. Cade may look like the Heisman front runner this week. You just don't know.
This is a game, and Justin, give me your take on it. That particular game, the Clemson North Carolina game, this would be a live bet game for me. This would be if I see Clemson march down the field and that line moves to minus 20.5, something like that. I mean, you can tell me if Clemson gets the ball first, they're 14-point favorites, they score 7. What do you think that live line is going to be? 20.5?
17, 20, somewhere in there.
Yeah. If Clemson marches down the field, and I think the Clemson defense shows up like they haven't all year, I think it can be a real big bloodbath. So I would bet that game live. I don't think I'd touch it pre-flop.
Hey, that's a good point too. And if North Carolina somehow scores first, then it would drop, and you get an even better number.
Then you still pound Clemson.
Right.
But we don't talk much about that team in the Upstate if we can avoid it.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Did you have a take on the game that he did go with? What was it? Your last pick was Louisville minus 6.5. I thought you were going to say something, Justin.
Yeah.
No, I had Louisville. I mentioned earlier. I like Louisville in this spot. I think Virginia's coming off a big emotional win in that overtime win, upsetting Florida State. Now they're on the road, and Louisville plays really good at home, and I like them in this spot as well.
Well, Justin, we appreciate you hopping on again tonight. Hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday because we'll talk a lot about this LSU game. And again, Justin, tell the folks where to find you, how they can sign up, and start winning some money.
Yes, sportscapvalue.com is where you can find us. Go to our website and check us out. Sign up for our monthly subscription where you get our daily picks for all the major sports. 6-5 last week, and I want to throw in a plug. Went 6-0 in NFL last Sunday, just for what it's worth. So.
Yeah, don't forget, it's not just college football. It's everything. Right. So, well, Justin, man, we really appreciate you. Go get the little one down. We all know how that can be. But thank you again, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye. Well, Alex, I think that we've touched everything that was on the agenda. If you're a member of the bigspur.com, you can go read some analysis. The latest 24/7 rankings dropped for the class of 27. You can go look at those rankings for free. But if you want to read some insight, the Gamecocks seem to be in the mix with the top inside offensive linemen in the country.
Yeah, you have that, and then tomorrow is actually going to have some media stuff with men's basketball. I should have mentioned this while we're talking about men's basketball, but getting talk to a bunch of players, and I think all the coaches going to be available. So make sure to stay tuned to that as well, and have stuff throughout the rest of the week on that.
Yeah, the Big Spur is a great time during the bye week. It's a lot chiller. People seem to be happier. People definitely seem to be happier right now, Alex, after the Kentucky game.
It would have been a long week if that did not go Carolina's way.
It'd be a long 2 weeks, Alex.
Yeah.
A long 2 weeks. But just a reminder, no Rooster Rant this upcoming weekend. We will be back a week from tonight at 8 p.m. for the Late Night Gamecocks show. And just looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun getting ready for LSU. And remember, Gamecocks, don't worry about the name on the front of the chest. Just go out there and play. You still got a lot to play for, even though sometimes it seems dark. But what's the quote from Batman? The night seems the darkest right before dawn.
Yeah.
So maybe Kentucky was dawn for the Gamecocks. Alex, where can everybody find you?
I am obviously, other than the Big Spur, be on Twitter, Alex _ Jones 45. I think that's right. Mine's all kinds of messed up, so sounds right. And if you find me there, and then obviously, as I mentioned, I'm on the Big Spur, and we'll be there all rest of the week, getting ready for another week of football next week.
Yeah, can't wait. Well, Alex, I hope you have a great rest of the evening. Everyone that popped in tonight, thank you so much for joining us. When you join us, you give us the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. And I mean that very sincerely. As somebody who's getting older, I know how valuable time is, and we just can't thank you enough for spending your time with us. But that'll be it for me and Alex. We appreciate all the comments tonight. This is a very, very fun show, and we will be back 1 week from tonight. Hope everyone has a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.